I just got this new stock XJ. It's a 2000. It has tons of problems. I'm gonna walk you through them. Stay tuned and go wheel. So the reason I wanted to get an XJ Cherokee are they're very inexpensive to buy if you sit around and wait. I wanted a 2000 through 01, which I got a 2000. Parts are really cheap. They're really easy for me to diagnose, really easy for me to repair, and really easy to get parts for, especially in stock form. So I got this Jeep and the interior was thrashed. I've been trying to carpet clean it with our cheap like Target carpet cleaner thing. I've been vacuuming it nonstop. Gone through about 10 or 20 boxes of baking soda, trying to get the smell out. It just smells like cigarettes, like really badly, like it's ingrained in there. I'm gonna be replacing the headliner, ripping the carpet out, doing some more cleaning on the seats and trying to get the smell out. I'm gonna pressure wash the carpet. That's the start of it with just the interior. The next thing is all the shocks are completely blown out, and because the previous owner was driving on the blown out shocks, it flattened out the leaves and actually inverted them a little bit. And the front passenger side ball joints are shot. The track bar, tie rod end at the frame is shot, and the tires are all totally shot. I pulled the rear drive shaft to check for the vibes the other day and see if the vibes were in the U-joints, but the U-joints looked actually fine. So I checked the T-case. The fluid was full, but it was just dirty. Changed out the fluid. So I think the vibes are tire balance, maybe transmission mount, definitely blown out shocks, definitely track bar and ball joints are contributing to that. I'm kind of hoping if I get all that stuff replaced in the near future that the vibes will go away and then I can start driving it to smog it. Here, I'll walk you through the interior next. It looks okay on camera right now, but it just still smells really bad. And like I said, there's a bunch of grossness like under the seats and just baked into the carpet. So you can see some of the baking soda and the other absorbent stuff I'm using. I cleaned the heck out of the seats. They were really gross looking before. The driver one still looks kind of gross. The passenger one, that's all like baking soda that I just vacuumed up, but there's still remnants in there. The headliner is like shot and probably holding smells too, so I'm gonna replace the headliner. It needs a new windshield. I did stick a new battery in it, but it was still having trouble starting. So I ended up replacing the starter cable with a heavy duty one that I had lying around. I also had to replace the ignition lock cylinder because it wouldn't go back all the way, but the key would still come out. Did an oil change. There was a rat's nest in the air box. Had to vacuum out the rat's nest and the rat poop. Replace the air filter. Still just like pretty dirty. Like really need to work on steam cleaning it maybe. There is the shiny new ignition lock cylinder. I'm thinking too I can pull the seats in the center console as I pull the carpet out and hopefully be able to like let those air out in the sun and hopefully get rid of some of the smells that way. I'm not gonna buy new leaves right away. I'm just gonna build a bastard pack and put another set of mains in there. And then yeah, the shocks are blown out completely. Like some of them are worse than others. Some of them, the other ones all have the fluid leaking out. Doesn't have a gas skid, but I have a factory one lying around I'll put in with the trailer hitch. Bump stops are rotten. I ordered all 4 shocks from Rock Auto for like $100. I'm gonna keep it mostly stock for now. Ordered some Spicer ball joint, stock track bar from wherever. Instead of lubricating the latch mechanism, like all these were kind of like seized, like rusted solid. And so the handle broke when I went to look at it. So we actually cut the handle out because it broke off. And I've been pulling on the wire with the locking pliers to open the hood for now. But the hood wouldn't close. So we ended up lubing everything tremendously with WD-40 and working it through, like working everything back and forth. Now the hood closes with no issues and the hood works fine. Driver's side window regulator doesn't work either. The hood latch safety catch is broken too. I ordered one of those on Quadratech. All right, the diagnosis was correct. I noticed after replacing this window regulator that the window still wouldn't go up and down, but if I unplugged this plug about halfway, suddenly the button worked, which made me think maybe there was something wrong with this guy, or when you plugged it in all the way, maybe it pushed one of these and hit something on the board. And so double checking the wiring in the door, there was no broken wiring for the controls, just for the speakers. The wiring often breaks right here in the late model XJs. So what I did was got a new one of these guys off of Amazon for 20 bucks. and put it in, and now you can plug this all the way in. Some rear XJ flag nuts on Amazon because both sides of the rear shock bolts broke off in the frame. So when you let it sit overnight, it doesn't have the no bus and the check engine light and all that stuff going on. All the gauges work fine. It runs fine all the time too, so it makes me wonder if it's some sort of other control module. I did unplug all the sensors, but it makes me wonder if it's something to do with the doors or the overhead console or the airbag control. So some updates. I swapped in the gauge cluster from my 98, and I also swapped in the TCM as well, which is right there. And the gauge cluster instantly worked, whereas the old gauge cluster had no bus. And on top of that, it was throwing a 1694 code, which is usually the TCM or the crankshaft sensor. So I'm gonna slap in a new crankshaft sensor, put the whole dash and the center console back in because I was testing the airbag control module out. There's the old cluster that was throwing no bus. So we'll see what's going on. I think I gotta do the CPS before I give up on it. All right, I recommend against using anything but Mopar, but honestly, this is all that was in stock on a Saturday night at O'Reilly's in Auburn, so this is what we got. These are all the extensions I used to get back past the transfer case. That's a wobble, that's a wobble, that's a wobble, that's a wobble, that's a mini wobble, that's a 7/16. All right, the CPS is out. This is an old Mopar one, so I mean, for all I know, this could be original because it's a Mopar part number. One of the little tricks that I do is I get the bolts loose from the bottom with like 3 feet of extensions. And then when I get really close, I use a magnet on a stick with the bolts still kind of hanging out of the transmission. Because if you're not extra careful with these guys, what can happen is you can, if you don't have that little, it's hard to see on this video, but there's like a little, it's a horrible shot, I guess, but there's like a rubber cover over the cavity where this guy sits in, and that one's on this rig, but a lot of times they're missing, and you might drop one of these into the bell housing. Glide areas for the calipers were divoted really bad, and so I ended up like welding those back up and grinding those smooth so the pads can slide freely. Adjusted the rear brakes, bled the brakes about 4 or 5 times. I was getting like black sludge out of the brakes. That was really bad. I actually need to swap the master, but it stops really good for now, but I'm gonna put new master, new calipers, new rotors, new pads up front, do wheel cylinders in the rear anyways, because everything is really old and rusty. Doesn't look so great. From there, the headlights didn't work at all. So like the headlights were completely shot. I mean, they worked, but one side was broken in half and like put out like almost no light. The other side put out a little bit of light about 5 feet in front of you. So if you were driving on the road at night, you basically couldn't see where you were going. So I did some cheap like Amazon lights, LED lights, and a cheap Amazon harness. I'm actually gonna turn this around right here so you can kind of see lights. There's the relays for the harness, and it kind of plugs in right there. The harness, the upgraded aftermarket harnesses, basically just they just plug into your existing wiring, and then you just run the new harness over to the passenger side. They plug in at the driver's side. It's for $60. I can't complain. They're freaking bright. I mean, now I can actually see at night, like really good. We do have new tires. I got some cheap, they're the cheapest I could find, like all-terrains. They're a 29-inch tire. They're a 235, 75, 15, and they're a Wrangler Trail Runner AT. Headliner. I've never done a headliner before. It kind of sucked, but it wasn't too bad. Joann Fabrics had the headliner fabric for $25, so I can't complain for $25. Had to fix like the overhead lights because they sometimes worked and had half the bulbs burnt out on the front, and then the cover on the rear was missing. This light bulb right here was originally just hanging down. I actually had that cover in my parts bin. They had tried to duct tape the hood at one point, and that was a really big pain in the butt to get off. I ended up using a razor blade and cutting through right there. That's, like I said, I'm gonna try to repaint that little section and then clear the hood and then polish it. Rear upper shock bolts broke off, and I had to buy the little kit. They have them on Amazon now really cheap for the upper bar pins, flag nuts. And the really good news, this thing just passed smog the other day, so it's ready to finish registering. I'm super stoked on that. So if you can, please like, subscribe, comment below, click notifications, do all those good things. I've got hopefully a ton more videos coming. We're gonna do a lot more on this thing. We've done a lot on this thing already. I also have a lot of videos coming for the JL Wrangler. It was just in the shop last night, getting a new rear bumper and some tube fenders from Middle Cloak. Why did I buy a Jeep Cherokee XJ as a backup car? First off, I know them front to back. I've been working on them for like 23 plus years and can usually diagnose most issues with them very quickly and very inexpensively, which leads to the second reason. Parts are really cheap for these, especially compared to like our 2020 Wrangler or even my 1-ton crawler XJ, where nothing's cheap for that anymore. Stuff for the 2020 Wrangler is incredibly expensive, whereas this new Cherokee needed all kinds of parts, which I was able to get very inexpensively and install them very quickly and diagnose all the problems immediately. And so I love that about the Cherokee. They seem to last forever, comparatively speaking to like a modern Wrangler. Like these motors will easily hit 300 to 400 to 500,000 miles. The trannies will too if you take care of them. I needed an inexpensive backup car because the Wranglers, our 2020 Wranglers had enough steering problems over the years to where I don't fully trust it. And so been looking for like a very inexpensive 2000 through 2001 Jeep Cherokee to kind of match my 98. A lot of the parts are interchangeable, not all of them, but a lot of them are.